Out of the submarine and into the studio, this is episode 2 of the Law Weekly Roundtable. I'm Hunter Leigh, and I'm joined in studio this week by Spellsy.
Hello.
And out of studio and back home in Santa Monica, Travis Gafford.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm really excited to be here, Hunter.
Excellent. It's wonderful to have you, as usual. We're going to start this week with a hot topic, at least at this time recording. Twitch recently announced some new VoD policies, especially related to recorded music or licensed music, and auto-muting of VoDs if they have licensed music auto-scanned by Audible Magic. This is so far only affecting VoDs. They've stated in the AMA that's going on as we speak that they have no intention of ever bringing this to live streaming services, but needless to say, it's caused a lot of uproar in the community since it got announced. Travis, what are you hearing from streamers or people down in LA? What are your thoughts on this?
I haven't heard too much from streamers themselves or anybody. I haven't heard too many like industry people talking about this, other than obviously Riot Games use their massive League of Legends Twitter following to, they tweeted out like, if you have music you want to share with streamers, let us know so we can share it with them. So obviously Riot already looking into it. I just find this whole situation hilarious. Like, the community reaction has been phenomenal. I've never seen, I would have never expected it to get this big, where people are like, Riot, please don't use Twitch to stream Worlds and that kind of thing. I don't really know what people expected. I mean, I'm not saying that this is a great move by Twitch, and obviously there's a whole lot of issues they're having where it's like muting game noises and stuff, although they've claimed that that's not supposed to be happening, so they're working on it. But I just find it hilarious that people somehow are really surprised by this or something like that. It just is very strange to me. Like, yeah. I think somebody posted on Twitter something along the lines of like, we want esports to become more and more mainstream. Wait a second, what's all this copyright BS that we have to deal with? So I just find the whole situation hilarious, and I really don't understand. I don't get, I guess, some of how crazy everybody's going over this.
Are you concerned at all about the slippery slope argument, maybe? That this is the start, and then later it'll come for live or everything else, and then there were sort of robotic automaton streamers who can't step out of line at all.
I mean, I do think that there are some pretty big concerns, but these were things that everybody was talking about months ago when we first started to hear Google acquiring Twitch. Obviously, in my opinion, I think that this is really motivated by the Google acquisition. You also saw them close down, the supposed one. I mean, at this point in time, people are starting to call it confirmed. But, you saw them close down Justin TV the other day, which, from what I understand at this point, was just doing nothing but streaming like pirated copies of The Simpsons and stuff like that. You see this happening as well. It just seems like they are trying to plug up any holes that they can before Google acquires them. I'm sure there's a huge list that Google gave them of things that you have to do first. So I don't think that they're going to look into doing anything with the live stuff. I would expect that would happen more once Google acquires them. I mean, this is all, like, this is how it's going to go,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my opinion of it is that while it's not, I don't think it's as crazy of an idea as like the community is reacting to. Like, they're thinking like, Twitch is evil, we need to find an alternative to Twitch, we need to stop everybody unsubscribe from your turbo, everybody install adblock. Like, there's like crazy reaction to having music licensing on VoDs. Like, if you said like a week ago, like nobody would even care about VoDs, really.
Right. The best reaction so far is that, look at this thing Google's making Twitch do now. I got a plan for LCS this weekend. We'll all watch it on YouTube. That'll show Twitch what's going on.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good too. I mean, I don't understand. Like, who are they? It's like, well, I was gonna go to Twitch today and do a search on their website for a VOD of a stream that occurred yesterday, like I always do. But no, wait, I can't do that. I mean, what is this? I just don't understand. Like, who's using these like VODs?
I don't know. We glanced at VOD numbers.
Yeah, and there were, like, for Odd One, who's like one of the most popular streamers, it was like 1,000 views on VODs. Like,
it's just not a thing, I think, for most people, but it seems very upsetting. So I understand the concern, but I feel like we're a long way from either there being an actual problem that affects the average Twitch user and a long way from a legitimate, like, such a weakness or chink in the armor for Twitch that competition can just rise up and slay them instantly, and then before you know it, Twitch is dead and long live Hitbox or something like that.
I also really don't like this like movement towards unsubscribing from streams or running ad block, because content creators are arguably hit by this pretty hard. I mean, I don't know if anybody's hit by it pretty hard, but obviously this affects content creators a lot. And by doing something like that, you're really screwing over content creators as well by denying them money. I've been happy to see that some people have said, okay, you know, make sure that you donate if you unsubscribe or whatever. I think that that's fair, but I don't know, it's just a really strange response by certain people. The whole thing just reminds me again that so many of the people, a lot of the people that I think are suggesting things like that are also the people that get up in arms anytime a content creator gets upset that people are using ad block.
Yeah.
As if they're like entitled to like free content or something like that. It's very odd to me. So
yeah.
I mean, I'm not happy about it. I don't want people to think that I'm somehow defending Twitch or anything like that. I just am unsurprised by it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that the copyright thing is kind of not as big of an issue as people are making it out. But I think that their execution has been like really poor.
From a PR perspective, this is
no doubt,
pretty terrible.
They rolled it out immediately, effective immediately on past VODs, so like nobody even had to be like, oh, I actually wanted to make this viewable in the future.
I'll go do something.
yeah. And then there's also like the games. Like I know one of the games that just recently came out was the Necro Dancer game. That's like a rhythm kind of game. And the developers' VODs are like banned for their own music, and they have no way to like get it unbanned.
Yeah.
Or
I think it's odd to start the program without any appeals process in place. And the Twitch AMA today was just like, well, let us know and we'll like do something. And that's just not a great process for people to overnight suddenly have the site maybe change that dramatically, or at least the sort of threat of your broadcast being changed so dramatically with no direct appeal.
Well, what's strange is they had the perfect opportunity to execute on this in a great way, because literally hours before they started doing this content matching, or content ID matching, whatever you want to call it, they made a blog post saying they were going to, hey, back up your VODs, we're going to be removing VODs in a while. After a certain amount of time, we're making these changes to the system. It would have been like the easiest thing in the world to do a follow-up and say, like, by the way, on that date, when we start removing old VODs, we will also start matching the stuff. So you give everybody the same amount of time to remove VODs from their channel or download VODs from their channel, and also deal with the music and audio situation. It's just the strangest thing to me. Their execution, as you said, is like incredibly poor on it.
Well, we'll have to see how this all plays out, if it is part of a larger transition or, you know, kind of clearinghouse, clearing way for the Google acquisition or not, but we won't learn anything new. But it's been interesting to see what's happened so far. All of the uproar and stuff is drowning out what was the end to the LCS season and the beginning of playoffs. Earlier today, while all of this is going on, Rocket defeated Super Hot Crew to advance to the next round of the sort of the EU playoffs, and we wrapped up last weekend with a fun Super Week, the end of LCS. What were your thoughts on 2014 Summer Split? How did it go?
I mean, I think it was a fine split. I mean, the NA was like way closer, and there's a lot more tension there. And EU, on the other hand, has kind of been separating, and there's kind of two teams that are really emerging as like really strong teams in Fnatic and Alliance. Yeah. While NA could go any way. Yeah. But I think it was a good summer season now to like build into Worlds.
It was a role reversal for NA and EU. EU was such a mess normally, with a kind of soft top and a really strong and unstable middle, and this was a strong top for EU and a kind of shaky, non-existent middle. Whereas NA softened up at the top seemed to get a little bit worse, Cloud9 and TSM stepping back, and the middle got stronger. Maybe Dignitas was better, Curse maybe was better, LMQ certainly better than you know, the norm of replacing a bottom team, but kind of a mess. Travis, you were there every day. What are your thoughts on Summer Split?
I don't know. I think it's really funny how many predictions people had that kind of came true, or these kind of expectations. A lot of people, you know, were having these conversations, is Cloud9 fallen or whatever, and then that sparked a lot of responses that are like, no, they just need to get themselves back into a good place and they'll be good again. And that's exactly what we saw happen over the entirety of the North American LCS split. At the very end, I find it fascinating that at the very last minute, Cloud9 comes out and is #1 again.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really interesting thing. I find LMQ, a lot of people said they didn't expect LMQ to be a top-tier team. Those guys obviously showed that they were able to do it, actually tying with Cloud9 at the very end. The only reason they got second was obviously because there was a tiebreaker situation between Cloud9 and LMQ, I believe. Then you got to feel for Dignitas too, because the entire first half of the split, everybody's like, oh, they're gonna drop down, they're gonna fall down, they're gonna fall apart. And you actually had Skara, Crumbs, these people go on the broadcast and in interviews say like, everybody's saying we're gonna do this, but we're not gonna do it.
Right.
And then they did it. So I feel kind of bad for Dignitas, but it's just interesting to me to see how many of these things panned out. I think the only one that didn't was a lot of people had expectations that this was CLG's split, and man, those guys sort of fell apart towards the end. We'll have to see how Korea works for them or not, but I don't know.
I think you're right that no matter how it started, it kind of shook out to roughly where you might have expected it to begin. And, like Dignitas winning the split until they lose it, right? Like sort of classic Dignitas thing. And all these big moves that people did, there's still playoffs to go. We don't know who will end up at Worlds. But, CLG, TSM, Dignitas, they make big moves to try to reshape their roster and set themselves up for more success. They end up roughly back where they were. Yeah. Maybe they don't make Worlds at all. Maybe Curse is the big surprise, and those teams, Curse benefited from TSM's changes and rides to Worlds, and teams make big moves and they don't end up. It'll be interesting to see where all of that shakes out as we head into playoffs. Favorite moment, top player, MVP, anything that really stood out for you this split?
LMQ just stands out. I think they're the big story for me. I don't know. Those guys are really... It's really interesting, and it's impressive to see how well they've done, especially amid all the business drama in the final 2 weeks. We'll have to see that if that affects them at all going into playoffs, but pretty interesting thing. I do think that North America has gotten a lot stronger as well, and as you mentioned, it's kind of interesting to sort of see a lot of these teams that were moving around a lot, and it wasn't the way it was before, whereas over in EU, a lot of people feel as though there's only 2 really good teams right now. So, I don't know. It's been fascinating, and I'm actually really quite interested in seeing how North America does. Playoffs should be really interesting.
Yeah.
You don't know. Dignitas and Curse could do something really interesting.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It's not like TSM or CLG, the model of consistency this season.
Right.
Yeah.
So that could be quite fascinating, and I'm interested to see how NA does at Worlds as well.
Yeah. Spellsy, what jumped out at you this split?
I think the biggest thing for me was there's been a really strong AD carry presence in North America, I feel like, with Vasily, and I think more importantly Altec has really been a strong rookie this season. He just hit the age limit of 17 or whatever and joined this season, and he's still in school, but he still did really well, I think, for EG, and I think he'll be an interesting player to watch in future seasons.
Yeah, all the hype of Pobelter finally delivered in Altec.
Yeah, exactly.
And the sort of resuscitation of Crepo's career at the same time, as Travis well documented in those interviews. EG, I don't know where it goes. It's so long before they play their next meaningful LCS game. Who knows if they can build on this at all, but it was certainly an exciting finish for them and shows a lot of promise for what the team could be next year. Could be. Yeah. So, one thing, we talked about this last week with CLG's move overseas, TSM representing kind of a different model. They, at least in Loco's proud Twitter opinion, planned all of this better, and Amazing is in EU during the break time, but they don't have him available for scrims, where CLG maybe planned this worse, and Seraph wasn't going to be around for Super Week, and they sent everybody to Korea to keep team continuity. What are your thoughts on the benefits of those 2 different models? Would you rather control your destiny and have your full team at Super Week and get what you can, or keep your team together for practice in between and let Super Week go?
Yeah, it's actually really coincidental, I think, that both of these things happened at the same time. Both Amazing had to go to Europe and Seraph had to go to Korea or whatever, and these 2 people handled it in such crazily different ways. Amazing's just in Europe kind of chilling out, playing solo queue or whatever. And like, I don't even know what TSM's doing. Are they streaming?
They're not streaming as much. I assume Odd1's jungling and scrims, but I really have no idea. He's still streaming, so
I mean, who
maybe
knows
Loco is jungling and scrims. Or Reggie, I don't know.
Like, so TSM is approaching this way differently. I wonder, it's kind of, because we talked about last week how Korea could be a plus or a minus for CLG. It's like, it's really interesting to see, well, it will be interesting to see in the playoffs which team will kind of come out strong.
Right. Continuity versus travel and jet lag and stuff.
Yeah.
Travis, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, if you look at what Loco's tweets said, it seemed to, I feel like the basic premise is they were banking on getting first or second at playoffs and then having an extra week, right? So the way that CLG got their extra week of practice and scrims as a team was, I mean, you say extra, in reality it's like the week that they'd be missing.
Right.
But the way they got that week back was by going to Korea. It seems as though the way TSM expected to get that week back was by playing with Amazing, and then they would get first or second and they'd have this extra week. That was that tweet that I retweeted to give Loco some crap. But and it doesn't seem to have panned out for TSM because obviously they do have to play soon. So I don't know if that's going to be a deciding factor. I mean, you can, after everything shakes out, you can argue one way or the other. But I don't know. It doesn't feel to me like TSM. I don't know if I would say TSM should have sent their entire roster to Europe, but the kind of cockiness that they had around CLG's decision and the superiority that they had around it makes me feel like maybe that was a little unfounded, because I feel like both of them were interesting decisions, and I don't know if like TSM's was particularly way better. Yeah,
it just adds instability to an already unstable situation, right? Like Lustboy just got there, and now Amazing's gone. You never get your full 5 together, even if, like Loco says, they can keep Amazing just gone for like 5 to 7 days, not a crazy long time. You haven't had your full roster together basically at all to try to prepare for Worlds, let alone just say playoffs. Making it to Worlds in theory isn't enough for TSM. They've set the bar higher than that. They've been there twice and they wanted to go further. This is you would not think ideal preparation for like getting to and then doing really well at Worlds.
Yeah. I think the Lustboy thing is like a really extra like icing on the cake, where it's like he just moved into and like so his practice time is really necessary right now. Like you need to get that synergy or whatever, since he just joined the team, and we talked about how it was a risk to have him come in so late and then to give up a week of practice or whatever is actually
not saying they should pay for the expense to fly to Germany or whatever, but it was interesting to hear them crow about their particular scheduling achievement and what has that gotten them, like you said.
Well, my stance, I think, strange enough, still stands firm that I expect TSM to go to Worlds over CLG at this point, assuming Cloud9 and LMQ are going. I feel like even though all this still pushes stuff in CLG's direction, I've always felt as though historically CLG, the counter logic really works, in the philosophies and the way everything pans out for them. So you would expect, only because I would expect this to help CLG, I fully expect it to mean that they won't be going.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm hoping for a repeat of the analyst desk from last year's Worlds, and the only way we get that is if CLG is not in the competition. So Crepo came through, and Monty's ready, so we're almost all the way there, just getting close.
It's time for Curse to kick out CLG.
I mean, you wouldn't even rule it out. Curse finishing strong.
Yeah.
And then if Xpecial can lead Curse over TSM and prevent them from getting Worlds and then stomp on their bodies while he screams or whatever, that would be your best finish.
Yeah, I don't think Curse is going to go to Worlds.
Mid Tristana is clearly unbeatable. So you never know. And no one can ban it. I think you cannot ban Tristana. There's something in the code. There's no way to ban it. So speaking of Worlds, Travis, you got the scoop twice over. Tell us what we're looking at for Worlds this year.
So Worlds is basically going to be you watch Thursday through Sunday or Friday through Monday. It's pretty much just a 4-day weekend situation every week, and then it moves to a new location. So that's what we're going to be seeing over the course of 4 to 5 weeks in late September to mid October. Obviously, the time zones suck for anybody in North America, especially on the East Coast. but I mean that's kind of like North America's had the best times for the past 2 years, so I mean, this is the nature of having an international sport. The prize pool did not go up at all. I mean, it did a little bit, but I mean, effectively didn't really go up. And a lot of people there was a lot of discussion. Essentially, the moment that I tweeted that out, because I found it in the rules or whatever, and wrote an article and tweeted it out, I saw a ton of people start waving their dicks, essentially, which is the only way to describe the conversation between, oh, well, literally people will just say, Valve's or TI's was 5 times bigger. You know, like you could just replace everything there with penis conversation.
Yeah. Well, let's take these.
I actually quite agree. At first I had hoped that when the TI stuff came out, I had hoped that there would be some sort of crowdfunding thing, and you got to expect that if Riot had released a skin and literally did this across all the different regions, that they could beat that 10 million number.
Sure.
But or whatever it ended up being. But I actually am starting to agree a lot with the whole it's not really a good stable thing. I guess the big question is like, does giving the winner of the tournament an extra $4 million somehow make the esports scene better? I don't really see it that way. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I think definitely going the 10 million route is kind of questionable. I mean, what they have with the LCS and OGN and all that kind of stuff in more stable throughout the year events, I think is better for the ecosystem. But it is interesting that they didn't go up at all almost.
Like
they were just like, oh, this 2 million that we did last year, that's fine. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
I suspect that they are just concerned because they're like, oh, all right, so if we do 3 million this year, which means we have to do 4 million next year, and I think they're probably just extrapolating out and feeling like it might get a little crazy. So maybe this is where they decide to hold the line, you know?
Which it's not an insignificant amount of money, right? Like, no one should feel too bad about winning $1 million and splitting that amongst the team. And when you think about professional sports, ideally you want players who are playing for the competition itself, not necessarily for any monetary reward that they're getting on the other end. There might be a Super Bowl bonus. In fact, there is, but it's not like anybody talks about, oh, you know, John Elway or whatever, Peyton Manning really needs that extra $250,000. Like, that's the extra incentive. Or look how much better football is than basketball because you get more or less money for winning the championship. We think of it as a competition. They're there because they want to compete and prove that they're the best. That's driving them more than anything else. Maybe that's factoring into Riot's thinking.
I think it would. Oh, go ahead.
I'm not disappointed by the prize number, but I don't attach much to it, and I don't think Riot needs the PR of having the biggest money to say that our thing is meaningful because look how much money is on the line. The way Valve, it's their one event, you want it to be bigger and bigger and bigger every year.
I do think that there's an opportunity that Riot is missing, though, if they don't allow some sort of crowdfunding thing to happen. I feel like the Dota community was really excited to be able to feel like they all invested into this event. So I would like to see, I think I still would have thought it would be really cool if there was wow, you know, we released this skin and it somehow played a role at Worlds, either in creating a bonus event or in unlocking different things. I don't know, but I think that it still would be really cool if there was a way for the community to invest into Worlds in some sort of way.
Yeah, like you could sell the skin bundle from last year's World, right? And have some certain percentage of the proceeds go to the next year's Worlds or whatever. I assume this relates to the team icon sales and how we've never gotten numbers on how much those have or haven't done or kicked back or that kind of thing. And maybe that just reflects that this isn't what the LoL community particularly does. Like, I see some of those in game, but not a ton. You don't get the sense that people like that's generating a real amount of revenue for teams. That
team icons are whatever, right?
Yeah, that's
right.
The thing.
They're kind of whatever.
Team icons are kind of whatever. In the analogy with the compendium was crazy. It gave you icons. It gave you new game features. It gave you weather. It had really crazy features. It's not even just a skin or just an icon, which is even worse than a skin.
Right. Let's say they had World Championship Spirit Guard Udyr, right? Like this is the next whatever ultimate skin.
Yeah, they would have to do. I feel like they should do more, and they're not going to do more. Riot's development process is so slow that they would never be able to pull off the compendium.
The compendium is a great idea. I really want them to do something that's like the compendium. I really would like it if the community could invest some way into the scene. Maybe it's something where the amount of money gets split evenly between all the teams that goes to Worlds. You know, I don't know, but there's got to be some way that the money can go into Worlds or be a part of it, and that people can get some really cool package. Like, I'm a Worlds fan, I can throw down $10, and this is what I get.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, I mean, a digital ticket has been well modeled in all kinds of these sort of things, and even if you just get mailed the swag bag that they hand out at Worlds, or like, right, where's my Pulsefire Israel statuette that I could have gotten last year, you know, that's that kind of stuff. People might go for that. I think you're right that there's probably tremendous interest, not just from a competitive LoL versus Dota state, but just in the community in general, and giving back to the teams and players that they've been following all year. If this is a way to do that and really help them, and then I assume there would be community interest. Riot would have to comment officially, but it's certainly not something they got together for this year.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have for Worlds talk. Hunter, what's our next topic?
There is no next topic, Travis.
That's the
This
show?
is it. That's the show. That's the show. So thanks everybody for tuning in, episode 2. I'm Hunter Leigh. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter B. Lee, and I'll be ignoring any complaints you have about the site there. Travis?
That doesn't sound good for us. You can feel free to send all complaints to him. He won't ignore them, I promise.
I'll read them.
And also, it's spelled Leigh, L-E-I-G-H. So when you say Lee, you probably think L-E-E. You can find me on Twitter at SOTL Travis. That's my big thing, my Twitter, my place. Facebook.com/SOTL Travis. I have a website called TravisGafford.com. But all of my really, really good content, of course, ends up at onGamers.com, which everyone should check out. And sometimes Spellsy posts something there too, right, Spellsy?
Yes, and you can also follow me at SpellsyLOL.
There you go. So subscribe to us on Twitter, or subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter. We'll see you again next week.